The emergency beacon screamed across the void of space, its desperate signal cutting through the cosmic background radiation like a knife through silk. Captain Zekthara of the research vessel, Harmonious Inquiry, had been monitoring deep space communications for 17 cycles, cataloging the various signals that drifted between star systems. Most were routine trade negotiations between the civilized species of the Galactic Council, occasional diplomatic exchanges, or scientific data transmissions. This signal was different. The Velkari captain's four eyes widened as the translation matrix decoded the message. It was a distress call from the Outer Rim territories, where only the most desperate or foolish ventured. The signal originated from a mining operation on Kepler 442b, a world classified as a Class 12, Deathworld by the Galactic Survey Corps. The very designation made Zekthara's chitinous exoskeleton shiver. Involuntarily, priority emergency broadcast to any vessels in range, the message began, crackling with static from the immense distance. This is Mining Station Omega-7 on Kepler 442b. We are under attack by unknown hostiles. Repeat, we are under siege. Our defensive systems are failing. We have approximately 47 standard hours before total facility breach. We are a peaceful mining operation with no military capabilities. Please. Any vessels capable of providing assistance, we will transfer all our refined trilithium stores in exchange for evacuation. Coordinates attached. End transmission. Zekthara's mandibles clicked nervously as she reviewed the sensor data. Kepler 442b sat in the notorious Terran expansion zone, a region of space that most civilized species avoided at all costs. The humans had claimed several systems in that area, though they rarely bothered with formal territorial declarations. They simply arrived, established their colonies, and somehow thrived on worlds that would kill any other known species within hours. The research vessel's crew gathered on the bridge as Zekthara announced her decision to respond to the distress call. Her science officer, a tall, graceful Etherian named Lysandra, projected her concerns through her species' natural telepathic abilities. Captain, the risk assessment algorithms show a 73% probability of mission failure if we approach that system. Lysandra's thoughts whispered directly into Zekthara's mind. Kepler 442b registers atmospheric pressure readings that would crush our hull, gravity wells that exceed our compensator's maximum output, and radiation levels that would cook our biological systems within minutes. The captain's tactical officer, a heavily armored Cronin warrior called Throckmar, growled his agreement through his species' characteristic subsonic rumble. The wisdom of the science division supports caution here, Captain. Even if we could reach the mining station, our weapon systems are designed for research escort duties, not combat operations. Whatever force is attacking a fortified mining installation would vaporize our ship before we could establish communication range. Zekthara considered their words carefully. The Velkari had not achieved their position as one of the premier research species in the galaxy by taking unnecessary risks. Their entire civilization was built upon careful observation, methodical study, and calculated decision-making. Every instinct in her body told her to file the distress call with the nearest Council emergency response station and continue their survey mission. Yet, something about the desperation in the transmission bothered her. The mining station had specifically mentioned they were peaceful civilians, and their plea had carried the kind of raw terror that transcended species boundaries. In her years of monitoring communications, she had learned to read the emotional undertones that universal translators often missed. Set course for the Kepler 442 system, she announced finally, but we maintain maximum sensor distance until we can assess the tactical situation. The journey through hyperspace took 18 standard hours, during which the crew ran continuous simulations of potential rescue scenarios. None of them ended well. Their ship, designed for scientific observation and data collection, carried minimal defensive capabilities and no offensive weapon systems worth mentioning. They were essentially flying into a combat zone in what amounted to a very sophisticated sensor platform with a hyperdrive. When they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, their sensors immediately began screaming warnings. The mining station's distress beacon was still transmitting, but it was much weaker now, indicating significant damage to their communications array. More concerning were the massive energy signatures surrounding the planet. Captain, Lysandra's telepathic voice carried a note of pure terror. I'm reading 17 large vessels in orbit around the mining world. They're registering as Hive-class dreadnoughts. The Hive. Even the name sent waves of primal fear through every civilized species in the galaxy. They were the nightmare that lurked beyond the outer rim. A race of insectoid creatures that consumed entire worlds, stripping them of all biological matter before moving on to their next target. They built their ships from the bones and shells of conquered species, powered them with the processed remains of billions of victims, and their very presence in a system was considered an extinction-level threat. Zekthara stared at the tactical display with growing horror. The mining station on Kepler 442b wasn't just under attack by raiders or pirates. They were facing total biological extinction, and every moment of delay brought them closer to being dissolved into protein paste to feed the Hive's endless hunger. Begin immediate retreat to hyperspace jump distance, she ordered, her voice hollow with defeat. We cannot engage 17 dreadnoughts with a research vessel. We must alert the Council Defense Forces immediately. As her ship began its turn away from the system, a new contact appeared on their sensors. Something massive was approaching from the direction of the inner system, moving at sublight speeds that should have been impossible for any known vessel. The sensor readings made no sense. The object was roughly the size of a Council battlecruiser, but it was accelerating at rates that would turn any organic crew into paste against their bulkheads. What is that? Throckmar rumbled, his warrior instincts suddenly alert. Before anyone could answer, a new transmission cut through their communications array. The signal was tight beam, directed specifically at their vessel, and it carried the kind of raw power that suggested military-grade broadcasting equipment. Unknown vessel. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UES Retribution. We have been monitoring your approach to this system. Be advised that you are entering an active combat zone. Recommend you withdraw to minimum safe distance and observe. Zekthara's blood went cold. A human vessel. They had stumbled into the territory of the Terran Deathworlders, and now they were about to witness something that would either be the greatest rescue in galactic history or the most spectacular military disaster ever recorded. Captain Chen's voice carried the kind of calm confidence that only came from someone who had faced death so many times that it had become a casual acquaintance. Zekthara had studied human psychology as part of her xenobiology research, and she recognized the tone immediately. It was the voice of a predator preparing to hunt. UES Retribution. This is Captain Zekthara of the research vessel Harmonious Inquiry, she responded, fighting to keep her voice steady. We received a distress call from mining station Omega-7. Are you here in response to their emergency beacon? A brief pause followed, during which Zekthara's tactical officer was frantically trying to get sensor readings on the human vessel. The results were disturbing. The ship appeared to be constructed from materials that their sensors couldn't properly identify, and its power output readings fluctuated wildly as if the vessel was running multiple systems that defied conventional physics. Affirmative. Harmonious Inquiry. We've been tracking the Hive incursion for the past 6 hours. The mining station still has life signs, but their defensive perimeter collapsed 43 minutes ago. The bugs are currently in the process of setting up biological extraction equipment. Zekthara felt her crew's horror through their various species' emotional emanations. Biological extraction was the Hive's euphemism for liquefying every living thing on a planet and processing it into food. The miners weren't just going to die. They were going to be consumed while still alive. Their consciousness preserved until the very last moment to ensure maximum protein yield. Captain Chen, Lysandra interjected through the comm channel, her telepathic abilities allowing her to project speech directly through their communication system. My tactical analysis indicates 17 Hive dreadnoughts in orbital positions around the mining world. Surely you don't intend to engage such a force with a single vessel. The humans' laughter came through the channel, and it was the most terrifying sound any of them had ever heard. It wasn't the laughter of madness or desperation. It was the laughter of someone who found genuine amusement in what others considered impossible odds. 17 dreadnoughts, Captain Chen repeated, as if she was confirming the number of pastries she wanted to order for breakfast. That's actually fewer than we expected. Intelligence suggested they were moving a full Hive fleet through this sector. 17 is practically a scouting force. On the Harmonious Inquiry's bridge, Throckmar was running combat calculations through his warrior species' instinctive tactical processors. Even with his people's legendary skill in warfare, the mathematics were stark and unforgiving. A single vessel, regardless of its capabilities, simply could not engage 17 capital ships and expect to survive, much less emerge victorious. UES retribution. Perhaps we should contact the Council Defense Forces, Zekathara suggested diplomatically. A coordinated response from multiple species might— No time, Captain Chen interrupted. The miners have maybe 2 hours before the extraction process begins in earnest. Council response time to this sector is minimum 8 hours, assuming they even have battle groups available to deploy. Besides, this is Terran space. We handle our own problems. The human vessel suddenly accelerated toward the planet at speeds that made Zekthara's physics training scream in protest. Whatever drive system the humans were using, it ignored several fundamental laws that governed conventional space travel. The ship didn't gradually build velocity like every other known propulsion system. It simply decided to be moving faster and made reality comply with that decision. All stations, this is Captain Chen. General quarters. Seal the ship, charge all weapon systems, and prepare for immediate combat operations. Today we show these bugs why humans don't make good prey. Over the comm channel, Zekthara could hear the sounds of a ship preparing for battle. It was unlike anything in her extensive database of recorded military communications. Where other species preparations involved careful system checks, tactical coordination, and measured resource allocation, the human vessel seemed to be transforming into something entirely different. Equipment hummed with barely contained power, and she could hear crew members calling out status reports that involved weapon systems she had never heard of. Target acquisition complete, came a voice in the background. All 17 dreadnoughts are locked in for simultaneous engagement. Plasma charges at maximum, reported another crew member. Kinetic penetrators loaded and ready. Point defense systems online. Boarding parties standing by, announced a third voice which made absolutely no sense to Zekathara. Who prepared boarding parties when facing 17 dreadnoughts? The UES retribution plunged into the Hive fleet formation like a meteor striking a lake. The alien vessels immediately responded with the kind of coordinated precision that had made them the terror of the Outer Rim. 17 dreadnoughts opened fire simultaneously, their bioplasma weapons creating a web of destructive energy that should have vaporized any single target. Somehow, the human ship wasn't there when the weapons reached its position. It had moved again with that impossible instantaneous acceleration, appearing behind one of the dreadnoughts and opening fire with weapons that burned like miniature stars. The first Hive vessel simply ceased to exist. One moment it was a kilometer-long nightmare of chitinous armor and organic weaponry. The next it was expanding debris and superheated gases. But the humans weren't finished. Even as the remaining 16 dreadnoughts turned to track their target, the retribution was already engaging the next vessel in line. By the eternal void, Thrakmar whispered in his people's ancient warrior tongue. They're not running a defensive pattern. They're hunting. Indeed, as Zekthara watched the battle unfold on her sensors, she realized that Captain Chen wasn't trying to escape or hold position until reinforcements arrived. The human vessel was systematically destroying each Hive dreadnought with the methodical efficiency of a farmer harvesting crops. Every movement was precise, every shot perfectly calculated, and every tactical decision designed to maximize damage to the enemy while minimizing exposure to return fire. The Hive vessels, for their part, were displaying the kind of desperate aggression that came from suddenly realizing they were no longer the apex predators in this engagement. Their bioplasma weapons reached out desperately, trying to pin down the human ship long enough to land a killing blow. But the retribution moved through their formation like a ghost, striking where they were weakest and vanishing before they could respond. Within 37 minutes, the space around Kepler 442b was filled with the cooling wreckage of what had once been 17 Hive dreadnoughts. Not a single human vessel had been lost, and the UES retribution now hung in orbit above the mining station, apparently none the worse for having single-handedly annihilated an entire enemy fleet. Mining Station Omega-7, this is Captain Chen. Please respond if you are able to receive this transmission. After a moment that stretched like eternity, a weak voice crackled through the communication array. UES Retribution, this is Station Manager Torres. My God, we thought we were all dead. How is this possible? Standard Rescue Operations Station Manager. We'll have transport shuttles deployed to begin evacuation within the hour. Sit tight and keep your people calm. You're safe now. Zekathara stared at her sensor readings, trying to process what she had just witnessed. A single human vessel had engaged 17 hive dreadnoughts and emerged completely victorious. It wasn't just military superiority. It was a demonstration of power so overwhelming that it redefined her understanding of what was possible in modern warfare. "Captain Zekthara," came Captain Chen's voice over the comm. "Thank you for responding to the distress call. Your willingness to help, even knowing the odds, speaks well of your species. We'd be happy to provide escort back to Council space if you'd like." The Velkari captain found her voice after several moments of stunned silence. "Captain Chen, how did you accomplish what we just witnessed?" "Our tactical computers are showing that engagement is mathematically impossible." Again, that terrifying human laughter echoed through the communication channel. "Captain, you've been studying warfare as conducted by civilized species. You've been analyzing conflicts between peoples who fight according to rules, who consider the preservation of life sacred, and who view battle as a last resort to be avoided whenever possible." A pause followed, during which Zekthara could hear the sounds of the human ship launching rescue shuttles toward the mining station. "The thing is, Captain, humans aren't civilized. We're Deathworlders. We evolved on a planet that spent millions of years trying to kill us, and we got very good at killing back. When someone threatens our people, we don't fight according to civilized rules. We fight to win, and we fight with the kind of vicious efficiency that our homeworld taught us. The Hive made a fundamental error in their strategic calculations." "What error was that?" Zekthara asked, though part of her didn't want to know the answer. "They assumed we were prey." 3 days later, Zekthara stood in the council chambers of Velkar Prime, facing an assembly of representatives from 43 different species. The emergency session had been called after her initial report reached the Galactic Council's Military Intelligence Division. Every species in known space wanted to understand what had happened in the Kepler 4I-42 system. The holographic display above the chamber floor showed the tactical recreation of the battle, compiled from the Harmonious Inquiry's sensor logs. 17 red markers representing Hive dreadnoughts surrounded the green dot of the mining station, while a single blue marker indicated the human vessel's position. The assembled delegates watched in stunned silence as the recreation played out the impossible 37-minute engagement. "The sensor data has been verified by 3 independent analysis teams," announced High Counselor Vorthak, his amphibious features betraying no emotion despite the gravity of what they were discussing. "Captain Zekthara's recordings are accurate and unaltered. A single human vessel did indeed destroy an entire Hive battle group." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. The Zelrani delegate, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns that indicated extreme agitation, projected her thoughts for all to hear. "This changes everything we thought we knew about both human military capabilities and Hive fleet strength. If one human ship can eliminate 17 dreadnoughts, what happens when they deploy a full battle group?" Commander Yixtal of the Council Defense Forces stood to address the assembly. His Corvin species had been the premier military power in the galaxy for over 2,000 years, and his people took great pride in their strategic acumen. "Our intelligence services have been monitoring human military development since their species achieved faster-than-light travel. Our projections indicated they possessed above-average tactical capabilities, but nothing that suggested this level of combat effectiveness." Zekthara activated her speaking privileges and addressed the chamber directly. "Honored delegates, I believe our intelligence assessments may have been fundamentally flawed from the beginning. We've been analyzing human military capabilities through the lens of civilized warfare. But Captain Chen made it clear that humans don't consider themselves civilized in the way we understand the term." The Etherian delegate's telepathic voice whispered through the minds of everyone present. "Explain this distinction, Captain. How does their lack of civilization translate to superior military performance?" Drawing upon her xenobiology training, Zekthara began explaining what she had learned during her brief contact with the human crew. "Every species represented in this chamber evolved on worlds that we classify as Class 1 through Class 3 environments. Stable climates, predictable weather patterns, minimal geological activity, and ecosystems that supported the development of complex reasoning and social cooperation. We developed civilization as a way to maximize resource utilization and minimize conflict." She gestured toward the tactical display, which still showed the aftermath of the human victory. "Humans evolved on a Class 12 death world. Their entire planet spent millions of years trying to eliminate their species through extreme weather, tectonic instability, aggressive predators, deadly diseases, and environmental conditions that would kill most of us within hours. They didn't develop civilization to minimize conflict. They developed it to wage war more effectively. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. Species after species began connecting the dots, realizing that everything they thought they knew about human culture might be backwards. Their art celebrates conflict, continued Zekthara. Their literature is filled with stories of individuals overcoming impossible odds through violence and determination. Their recreational activities involve simulated combat and competitive struggle. Their children play games that teach tactical thinking and resource management under pressure. They don't view warfare as a failure of diplomacy. They view it as another form of communication. High Counselor Vorthak leaned forward with obvious concern. Captain, are you suggesting that humans are an inherently aggressive species that poses a threat to galactic peace? Before Zekthara could answer, a new voice echoed through the chamber's communication system. If I may, High Counselor, I'd like to address that question myself. Every delegate in the chamber turned toward the source of the transmission. A holographic projection materialized at the center of the speaking floor, revealing the image of Captain Sarah Chen standing on the bridge of the UES Retribution. She wore the same calm expression that Zekthara remembered from their brief encounter, but now she was addressing the most powerful political assembly in the galaxy. How did you access our secure communication channels? Demanded Commander Yixtal, his military instincts immediately suspicious. Captain Chen smiled with the same terrifying confidence she had displayed while facing 17 dreadnoughts. Commander, your secure channels use encryption algorithms that human computers broke approximately 15 minutes after we first encountered them. We've been monitoring Council communications for years, not because we intended any harm, but because we wanted to understand our neighbors before making formal contact. The admission sent shockwaves through the assembly. If humans could penetrate Council security systems at will, their technological superiority was even greater than the military demonstration had suggested. We've been debating whether to reveal ourselves to galactic civilization for some time, Chen continued. The consensus among human leadership was that most species weren't ready to deal with us as equals. Your reaction to a single rescue operation seems to confirm that assessment. High Counselor Vorthak recovered his composure and addressed the human captain directly. Captain Chen, the Council appreciates your successful rescue of the mining station personnel. However, your species' capabilities raise certain security concerns that must be addressed through proper diplomatic channels. Security concerns? Chen's laughter echoed through the chamber, and every delegate felt the same chill that Zekthara had experienced during their first contact. High Counselor, let me clarify something that seems to have been lost in translation. Humans aren't interested in conquering your territories or subjugating your populations. We have better things to do with our time. She gestured off-screen, and the display showed a star chart highlighting dozens of systems in previously unexplored regions of the galaxy. While your species have been carefully managing resources and avoiding conflict over a few hundred systems, humans have been expanding into the void beyond your borders. We've established colonies on worlds that your surveys classified as uninhabitable. We've made contact with species that you declared too dangerous to approach. We've been building an interstellar civilization in places you didn't even know existed. The revelation stunned the chamber into silence. Humanity wasn't a newcomer to galactic civilization. They had been building their own version of it in parallel, completely outside Council awareness. The Hive incursion into our space was the first direct threat we've encountered from this region of the galaxy, Chen explained. We dealt with it the same way we deal with any threat to human civilians, quickly, efficiently, and permanently. The mining station happened to be in our territory, so we responded to their distress call. It's what neighbors do. Commander Yixtal found his voice first. Captain, you're describing a parallel civilization that has existed without our knowledge. How many human vessels are there? How many worlds have you colonized? Chen's smile became something that would haunt the dreams of everyone present. Commander, asking about human military capabilities is like asking about the number of stars in the galaxy. We stopped counting when the numbers became too large to be meaningful. But I will say this, the UES Retribution is a rescue vessel, not a warship. What you witnessed was the equivalent of a human ambulance crew dealing with a minor emergency. The chamber erupted in barely controlled panic as the implications became clear. If a rescue vessel could annihilate 17 Hive dreadnoughts, What could an actual human battle fleet accomplish? High Counselor Vorthek called for order and addressed Captain Chen with the kind of diplomatic formality reserved for first contact with unknown species. Captain, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I extend an invitation for formal diplomatic relations between our civilizations. Perhaps we can find ways to cooperate for mutual benefit. We'd be happy to establish diplomatic relations, Chen replied, but understand that humans operate by different rules than the ones you're used to. We don't ask permission to defend ourselves. We don't negotiate with those who threaten our people, and we don't consider impossible odds to be particularly significant obstacles. What happened in the Kepler system will happen again if anyone decides to test our resolve. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Zekthara looked around at the faces of representatives from species that had considered themselves the apex of galactic civilization, and she saw the same realization dawning in every expression. They had just discovered that their quiet corner of the galaxy had a new apex predator, and it had been watching them from the shadows for longer than anyone wanted to contemplate. The age of careful civilized expansion was over. The age of the death